To the surprise of basically nobody, at least people who understand how the world works and money works, this shouldn't come as a shocker to you. Rotten Tomatoes have had paid reviews. Shocker, right? I hope it's not, because this shouldn't really be a surprise at all. This is pretty much like a running, let's say, meme or joke at this point. Whenever think of like IGN, if they sit there and they give Call of Duty an 8 or a 9 out of every single game, even though there's nothing new, magical, great, innovative, nothing changes the game, but somehow they always happen to keep giving it such a high score. But then you actually have a game that does try to break the barrier and try to be innovative, and it gets shitted on. But at the same time, innovative doesn't automatically mean good, and just because a game is repetitive or it doesn't really change the formula too much, it doesn't mean it's automatically bad either. On top of that, one of the biggest things people somehow keep failing to realize is that there are different types of reviewers, especially when it comes to big companies such as IGN or GameSpot or any other big corporation. More times than not, whoever gave your favorite game a 0 is not the same person who gives the next game a 10. It doesn't work that way. Multiple reviewers review different games. I wish people would realize that. Anyways, the point of today's video is there was recently an article that came out that was talking about how there was reviews that were paid for on Rotten Tomato, and it was by this group called Bunker 15. Now, if I'm being honest with you, that sounded like some hidden bunker underground for when the world's about to end, and it's supposed to be a place you go to. Doesn't really cross my mind as a place that's trying to buy out paid reviews, but it's very interesting. Let's dig into it. So this was the article by Vulture. They're the ones who broke the news and did the investigative research into this, in which everyone started being like, oh my god, what? No way, how is that possible? And so it started here in 2018. A movie publicity company called Bunker 15 took on a new project, Ophelia, a feminist retelling of Hamlet starring Daisy Ridley. Critics who have seen early screenings have published 13 reviews, 7 of them negative, which translated to a score of 46% on the all-important aggregation site Rotten Tomatoes. A disappointing outcome from a film with prestige aspirations and no domestic distributor. Now, for some of y'all watching this video, you might be scratching your head just wondering, are reviews really that important? Do people really care that much about what something is said on Rotten Tomatoes? And the answer is yes. It's the same reason for Metacritic when games come out and why people review bomb them. If the games have somehow gotten glowing reviews from critics, but it's actually dog shit, or just people have negative opinions, or whatever the case might be. But it's the reason why games always have it on their covers that 9 out of 10 on Metacritic, or whatever review score, or the same thing for movies that 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, such a great score. You know, realistically, to your average consumer, it actually does matter. For me, does it matter? No. For you, it probably doesn't matter as well either. But there are a lot of people who put a lot of trust and faith into these review sites, when in reality, you probably shouldn't. Let me give you a little taste. IGN actually had a pretty interesting article that it pretty much retold some of this, but they showed some of the responses from people on Twitter, and this is pretty much backs up what I was just saying. In IGN's article showed right here, many reacted to the report with a mixture of disbelief and sadness over how could this happen. A PR firm has been manipulating the Rotten Tomatoes scores of movies for at least 5 years by paying some critics directly. Truly depressing stuff. Why am I wasting time trying and often failing to say something cognate or interesting about movies I see when I should just be writing yes or no and hit and publish? What's more grim is the film marketers are paying off critics to boost Rotten Tomatoes scores, or that they have to pay so little. Rotten Tomatoes has always been an embarrassment to the profession. Of certified critic designation, the equivalent of a participation trophy. The grade and format a total sham. It weaponizes the illusion of the diverse voices against basic standards of good criticism. Burn it. So these are just some of the people that, some of them are probably critics themselves, and some people are just actual avid users of the website that are legitimately disappointed because now they feel like they don't know if they can trust the reviews, which honestly, you should never trust just reviews you see on one website. You should just sit there and find actual reviewers. At least in my opinion, I might be biased for this, but you would be better off finding a reviewer on YouTube that aligns with your taste and what you like, and so that you know there's someone that you could trust. Because more times than not, and maybe this is just wild, maybe I'm actually oblivious and delusional myself, but I don't think YouTubers are being bought out left and right to make good reviews on movies. I could be wrong. Maybe there's a whole market that reviewers are just being bought off on YouTube, but I just don't see it. I think it's just more like critics, ones who are actually technically in the industry that are not just classified as YouTubers. Because let's be real here, more times than not, YouTubers are treated like dog shit and no one respects the title. They just think it's a silly gag and they're like, oh, you're a YouTuber? Oh, okay, buddy. Yeah, you're a reviewer. Yeah, okay, buddy. You know, as opposed to an actual title, and then you have like your website and everything else, and then you have more credibility that way. It makes more sense to me that PR companies would go after those reviewers and those critics than off someone that's on YouTube. Anyways, the point is, find someone on YouTube, someone that you know you can trust, that has a pretty good track record, record, and their criticisms and what their opinions are align with typically what yours are for movies that you may have seen in the past and movies that you might want to watch in the future. Continuing on, says, just because the tomato meter says a title is rotten, scoring below 60%, it doesn't need to stay that way. Bunker 15 went to work. While most film PR companies aim to get the attention of critics from top publications, Bunker 15 takes a more bottom-up approach, recruiting obscure, often self-published critics who are nevertheless part of the pool tracked by Rotten Tomatoes. In another break from standard practices, several critics say, Bunker 15 pays them $50 or more for each review. These payments are not typically disclosed, and Rotten Tomatoes says it prohibits reviewing based on a financial incentive. And so typically, again, while it may sound cool and great that that's a rule and that's a actual policy in place, who's to say that they're actually tracking that and they're staying on top of that? Because clearly, from what a lot of people have been saying and what this article says, this has been happening for 5 years. So clearly Rotten Tomatoes has not been doing a good job trying to make sure shit like that doesn't get in the system. On top of that, $50, dog, that's it. Reviewers are taking 50. Hey, pay me $50. I'll make a review. I'm a nobody. Hey, pay me $50 and I'll start making reviews. Say less. Now, being serious, realistically, if you're only going to take $50 just to be paid off a review, come on, man, ask for more. Like, at least value yourself a little bit higher than that. $50 isn't exactly a lot, but I guess depending on where you're located and who the reviewers they were trying to get, maybe it is a lot of money. But yeah, pretty much the idea is you get a bunch of reviewers who are pretty much not known, but again, what the article says, they have access in the system, and Rotten Tomatoes tracks all their reviews. So you pay off a bunch of people that nobody cares about or nobody listens to for their opinion, but they happen to have access to these websites, and you can just buy them off. Then you can boost the actual review scores, and then they'll be like, oh my god, this shit's so fucking great. And if you happen to have one or two astute observers who happen to look a little bit more closely, they're like, something don't add up. Why we got all these nobodies, all these random reviewers? Why are they sitting there giving so many high praises? You got all the top critics at the very tippy top sitting there saying bad things, but then people at the bottom are saying that it's good. Something don't add up. And that's pretty much the situation in a nutshell. But this isn't to say that this is the only film it happened to. I'm about 99.9% sure it happens to a bunch of other films. We just haven't heard about it yet. And the same thing with games. Even though to this day there's been no substantial proof that IGN has ever been paid off for their reviews, a lot of people like to believe that they have been paid at least in some way, shape, or form for certain reviews in the past. Because some of the review scores just don't make sense. And for a corporation as big as them, it's not exactly a wild idea or a wild take to assume a company that big would actually be paid off. It continues on by saying, in October of that year, an employee of the company emailed a prospective reviewer about Ophelia. It's a Sundance film, and the feeling is that it's been treated a bit harshly by some critics. I'm sure sky high expectations were the culprit, so the teams involved feel like it would benefit from more input from different critics. More like critics who want to take some money. Wink, wink. You want some money for a good review, buddy? That's really what it means. Between October 2018 and January 2019, Rotten Tomatoes added 8 reviews to Ophelia's score. 7 were favorable, and most came from critics who at least reviewed at least one other Bunker 15 movie. The writer of a negative review says that Bunker 15 lobbied them to change it. If the critic wants to give it a barely overall positive, then I do know the editors at Rotten Tomato and can get it switched, a Bunker 15 employee wrote. I also discovered another negative review of Ophelia from this period that was not counted by Rotten Tomatoes by a writer whose positive reviews of other Bunker 15 films have been recorded by the aggregator. Ophelia climbed the tomato meter to 62%, flipping from rotten to fresh. The next month, the distributor IFC Films announced that it had acquired Ophelia for release in the US. So the idea and pretty much the main crux of this is, yes, there is one component to this, which is you want to have your audience think that this is a good movie. You want people to sit there and say, oh, okay, you know, reviews seem pretty decent. All right, maybe I will go check it out. But the other reason for good reviews is if you're a small filmmaker, then the chance of you actually getting a distribution deal to try and get your film out there is very unlikely, especially if your reviews are dog shit and it's low and it's below the 60%. And so you get trash on your tomato score, then distributors are going to be really unlikely to want to pick up your film. And so like you saw in the article, now that's over 60% and now it has a fresh score. Now it got picked up by a distributor a month later. It's like, oh shit, all right, maybe this film is decent. That's pretty much the crux of this. It's yes to get the audience and people that are looking at reviews to maybe want to go see the film, but it's also so that distributors can sit there and see, oh, okay, maybe this film is good because obviously it's being reviewed good, so we can take a chance on this and know that we'll probably get our money back in the long run. And of course, following that article, Rotten Tomatoes had their own statement. They said the integrity of our scores seriously and does not tolerate any attempts to manipulate them. But one point that was added in this article says it's an alarming example of how easily critics aggregators like Rotten Tomatoes can can be manipulated, especially when there's financial incentive to do so. And again, this isn't just something that's exclusive to Rotten Tomatoes. It happens to anything that has a review-based system. Anyone can be bought out. It just depends on how much money they're willing to accept. But anyways, I just wanted to talk about this because I found it intriguing. Personally, I'm not too surprised by this, but I know some people do. And for some people watching this video, you're probably actually caught off guard. You probably use these websites and you hope to actually get good reviews from them so that you can make an educated choice, whether or not you want to watch these movies or TV shows, or if you want to go buy a game or whatever the case might be. I honestly don't see anything improving from Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think they're ever going to be able to stop this, because to do that, I think you would need to build from the ground up all over and start fresh and do like a thorough review of all reviews done by critics on your website. From everything I read, it has like over 1,000 reviewers since 2018 that they approved of for their website. So that's a lot of them. So there's a good chance there are some bad apples involved with that website who are willing to take money to give a good review. Anyways, you made this far into the video, consider giving a like, subscribing to the channel, leave me a comment below what you think. Have a great day. Yeah.